my back to my YouTube channel for a Pop Dissects live stream. This is the first one I've ever done, so I don't quite know how it's going to pan out, but here we go. I'm going to probably stay on for at least half an hour just chatting to... Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel, Pop Dissects. This is the section where hopefully I'm going to answer some questions, and yeah, we'll see what happens. I might talk a little bit about different subjects, mainly music related, and hopefully we can get some people joining the live stream and asking me some questions. Maybe I'll play some songs. I don't know how this is going to go. This is entirely up to you. Ask me whatever you want. Yes, I'm going to start it off by talking a little bit about myself, and yeah, so what are we on now? We are into April, and one of my first videos of the revamp of this channel was this was back in January, to basically put myself out there. I am onto track 4 of the album Dystopia, and the drum and bass album is going really well. I'm actually working on another track at the moment that's a side project. Actually, do you know what? Right, bear with me, guys. I'm going to play you a little bit of my track from this new track, in which I am collaborating with somebody called Laurie, who also has a YouTube channel on here, and she's going to provide me with some vocals for this kind of chill out dance track. Don't quite know what it's going to be called yet. Basically, all I've done is structured it, and maybe I'll talk you through a little bit of tech and a little bit of ideas as to what I want to do with this track. So just hold fire and bear with me whilst I get this track up. Okay, so let's have a look then. Tracks. We have... where are you? There we are. Right. So at the moment, it's just a Logic file, obviously because I'm halfway through it. And we'll see if this works, if I can play the track for you guys. Okay. Let's just minimize this, get it on a smaller screen. That's not what I want to do. Teething problems. Right, let's get this smaller so I can have it alongside this. There we go. Oh. Well, that's just gone really small now. Okay. Right, I've managed to be able to get it to the screen. I really need a dual screen so I can duplicate stuff. Right, anyway, I know we haven't got anybody viewing the thing at the moment, but if people watch it back at a later date, then yeah, please still fire questions in the chat. I'd like to see that. I'd like to see that I've got some response. I'd like to see your ideas about the track. I'd like to see any questions, really, anything. That's what I'm putting this out there for. Right. Okay. I'm going to run through it, and I'm going to try and break it down as best I can. Right then. Up until the point where... Right, let's see. This is a bare bones. Okay, so into this section then we are going to add some this is the key vocal point of this. There's no lyrics written to it. I want Laurie to write some lyrics towards this bit, so when it comes in with the pad, it's going to sound very empty at the moment, and it was literally just going to be the pad and these vocals. I'm going to play around with these vocals as much as I can, maybe turn it into a little bit of a rhythm, and see where we're going. Anyway, so here it is. So, this is the first verse, guys. And then there's little vocal build going up here. This is where things start to get interesting because basically, so kind of trippy, kind of hypnotic. Don't know what time tune this is in. Then ad-libs and then main groove. Again, I'm going to add all sorts of percussion instruments in here to really bulk out this groove. Now I've got everything coming in. There's going to be some high-pass filters in there. It's going to be fun, quiet. So dynamically, then that little bit, it's going to be from low to high. I'm going to make sure that there's going to be some pitch bends in there so I can really get to grips with the dynamics of the track. So that is hopefully going to get released by the end of this week if I can get the vocals, the vocal stems for it. And then, we'll mix and master it and we'll see what happens. Also, I've got an idea. I'm going to now talk you through another one of my tracks. So let's get rid of that. Let's open up. So let's open up the KTB one, for example, if I can find it. Tracks. It will be KTB Bounce. Yeah. Okay. What's that playing on there? Great stuff. Okay. Let's whack this up so you can hear it. And I'll talk you through how I mixed it, how I mastered it, how I basically wrote the track. So basically, I was listening to KTB back in, back in December, this would have been, and I was flirting with a few ideas, and I like really experimenting with strange scales and particularly scale modes. So for instance, I think this one, most of my stuff is in F sharp because I really love F sharp or G sharp, but this is in F sharp Phrygian. So I'll explain a little bit about the Phrygian scale mode. So majority of pop music or music that is done in Phrygian is from the genre of metal or heavier music. And I think it really appeals to those really heavy power chords that you do on the guitar. And just sounds downright dirty, to be fair. And if you look at historically, all the way back in history, the Phrygian scale mode, it's sometimes called the snake charmer scale, because the Egyptians at the time, obviously, you've seen the old videos of pharaohs and whatnot, and they've had a snake charmer in, and they play certain notes, and the snake obviously comes out of the little pit. So that's where it comes from. That's where it originates from. Persia, Turkey, Egypt, all that sort of area of the world back in the day. And obviously we've adapted it now as a Western culture. We've Westernized it, and now it's thrown out there into the masses, and like predominantly a lot of metal bands. Hello, Khalid. Good evening. So that's where that comes from. Anyway, I'm going to play some of my track. I'm going to try and talk you through it. Let me know if you can hear it. So this bit's quite things to do is in production, isn't it?
I keep wanting you with the lights.
Very basic. Electronic stuff anyway.
I keep on moving with the lights.
Anyway, I'll drop a link. Might be a good idea. I'll drop a link towards the end of the video. But yeah, so the KTB track, F sharp, Phrygian, the whole Egyptian, Turkish kind of Iranian kind of sound that has created me to do my atmospheric drum and bass. Again, I think I found a niche in the market because not many people do this, and a lot of people have actually liked it. So I've got followers from Mexico, I've got followers from New York, I've got followers from Turkey, I've got people in like Malaysia that like this. Put it on my SoundCloud and it's been shared all over the world, which is phenomenal. I'm getting quite a following at the moment as it happens due to this. So yeah, I'm going to keep riding with this, and hopefully by August, September, the album will be finished, and I'll have 8 tracks. So I'm releasing it in the form of what is known as a waterfall release. So that basically means I'll release a track per month rather than release the whole album. It's going to be on Spotify. A lot of people have heard this already, particularly in schools I've worked at as well. So a lot of kids seem to like it. If that's my market, then yeah, I'm going to ride with that. A lot of producers actually in Manchester and Sheffield put together are liking my music at the moment. I'm not trying to blow my own trumpet, but yeah. So yeah, that's a little brief introduction to that. I've also done another one based on the film The Network, and it's basically talking about politics and how the government like to push these ideas on people, and they should not be just glued to this thing or this entity that is the government, and having to think for yourselves and cognitive thoughts rather than just sat watching the wrestling or watching the football and being happy with your toasters and your refrigerators and all your fancy gadgets that keep you occupied during the day, when in actual fact you should really be switching on to listening to yourself more than anybody else. And I think that's pretty poignant. It's particularly in today's day and age. We've just come through COVID, which was an absolute a ride, let's just say that. And a lot of misinformation was being thrown at us really during that period. And yeah, for musicians, that was quite a hard time. So we've had Rishi Sunak put money into Weatherspoons at the time when he was promising the NHS such and such, and these venues were shutting down all over the country. And it was quite tragic and quite sad to see these venues, well reputable venues, that were just bottling out because they were underfunded. And the thing is, these venues are independent, and we've had people like the Arctic Monkeys, we've had people like Pulp, we've had bands like Big Country, we've had basically these big bands that you now know are established and a household name, all came from these what can I say? All came from these local independent pubs. Obviously, I'm from Sheffield, so I know quite a little bit about the Sheffield background. So, for instance, if you've heard of places like the Lead Mill, Oasis played there back in the day, Arctic Monkeys just after them, obviously, and the Verve, and basically that Britpop scene that was basically getting formed at that point. And obviously, this has been a household name, the Lead Mill, across the UK for at least 30 years. So it's sad over the lockdown period, sad to see these independent venues just slip under. And a lot of these big artists were starting to raise money and sell guitars and get things signed and start petitioning to the government and fundraising for this to keep these venues alive. Hello there. And yeah, as musicians, to see something that you take for granted, to see something that's your bread and butter, to see something that you make a living off be swept from under your feet, promised this and rejected that over COVID. And a lot of these artists then, I don't know if you noticed people in the charts at that point, people like Ed Sheeran were putting out 3 or 4 tracks in the past 5 or 6 months, and that's unheard of because everything was online. They just wanted to produce their music still, but obviously you couldn't play to anybody. So, and you look at it, all these things were shutting down, and money pumped to this, and And you think, over lockdown, what did people do? They sat in front of Netflix. They used their Spotify premium accounts, and most of the government and the politicians did this with no regard to how much effort and time has gone into creating that music. Musicians sit there. I learnt drums. Took me what 5 years to become fluent and proficient at what I do. Right, but I've been playing. I've been playing in bands. I've been playing as a musician for 17. Yeah, let's say 17 years. And that just doesn't happen overnight. I've got a lot of kids in schools I teach at going, "Sir, why are you so good? How can you play these many instruments?" And all I keep saying is practice, 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 practice. This just doesn't happen overnight. It's like the meme that people keep seeing. You're at a family event and you're at a family gathering, and oh, you're the guy that can play guitar. Why don't you play his guitar? Go and play his Wonderwall. Go play his Wonderwall. Yeah, go play his Wonderwall. And they're like, oh, why are you so good? How? Because we sit in our bedrooms and we close ourselves off and we practice. We practice solid. That's what we do. And that's how we become good at this. And eventually that leads to, obviously, I took it one step further. I got a degree. And then I started teaching after that and took it into classrooms. And hopefully I've influenced a lot of people. Hopefully I still do influence a lot of people with the way I teach, as interactive as possible. But anyway, pulling it back to COVID. I did my degree during COVID, and obviously being a drummer, I couldn't sit in the flat I was in and play drums. Just wasn't you just can't do it. I just didn't have the space, so I needed those practice rooms to be open, but they weren't. Anyway, I got graded on a couple of assignments and modules on the keyboard, and I'm not the best at keyboard. I mainly use keyboard for writing music. I'm a much better guitarist and a singer than I am as a keyboard player, but that's the fact. And I feel like we were conned out of that. Maybe I still feel that £9,000 for that year was. I could have had it back in my own pocket, as I only did a quarter of that year due to COVID. With it being such a hands-on and practical degree, music performance and production, there's a lot gone into that we couldn't do, that you cannot deliver online. I cannot deliver. If we went back into another lockdown, as a music teacher, I would find it very difficult to teach music when I don't know if kids have got the instruments or a guitar, for example. If one kid's a proficient drummer, an amazing drummer, fluent drummer, there was a school I worked at in Duckenfield, and there was at least 3 or 4 phenomenal musicians to start with, but 3 of them were drummers, and obviously they didn't have kits at home, so their only access to a drum kit realistically was the school. As good or bad as that kit may be, we all have to start somewhere. And if any of them are on my YouTube account, and I do wish them all the best, but that if anybody's watching this later on after I've finished the live stream, then please do leave a comment about your experience during lockdown, because I'm interested to know. And just sat there for a year or so, year and a half, in front of my keyboard, trying to figure stuff out. The music theory side of it, I couldn't grasp it, because I'm one of these people that has to be physically taught it. So sitting with a guitar or sitting with something in front of you and having somebody else show me, that's the best way to teach. That's the best way I learn anyway. So I try and do that with a lot of kids or anybody that wants to learn anything. So that just wasn't accessible. That just wasn't doable. So what one module should have took a month, or one thing it took 6 months to do, and it was a simple song such as Amazing Grace. You think that's fairly easy as a musician to get your head around the first 3 phrases, but it's the what's it called? It's the modal modulation. No, not modal modulation. It's the direct modulation that I couldn't get my head around. Why does it modulate from secondary dominant chords and using fifths and sevenths? And just could not get my head around it, because I'm just looking at a sheet of paper going, it's just music. Yes, I can read the music, but there's nothing to stimulate that learning experience. So yeah, I also during COVID there was obviously no gigs, so I couldn't get out and play. The band at the time were online, and I think I only had 1-2 rehearsals maybe the whole all of lockdown. But then, as soon as lockdown ended, um, the world just opened back up, and it was one of the best times to be a musician. It was just like, and I've always said this to a lot of people, coming out of lockdown was just like Beatlemania was. So when the Beatles first hit and they made it big in the early '60s, and then he started doing these world tours, and the girls and the young people were just so captivated by this one band and swept a whole generation of young people. Um, and that's why it's called Beatlemania, because they didn't care about, and it seemed like they didn't care about anything else. I don't think there's a band to this day that has had that kind of impression on a generation of people. Um, so yeah, lockdown after that, after lockdown, it was literally just like that. And venues started opening and pubs started opening, and it was I session musician for a band, like a '60s retro band that were pretty big in Sheffield at the time. Very young. And we played some Beatles stuff, but it was a sit down, sit down gig, as I'd call it, where basically they bought a ticket and they had only had a certain amount of tables in front of the stage for people to sit at. And once they're full, that's it. You can't let any more in. But that was it. That was the sign of things opening. That was the sign of things progressing back to what they used to be like. And after that, then the rehearsals started, and there's a festival in Sheffield called Tramlines. And it's pretty big. How that started off, that was basically for the local bands until the Sheffield City Council took it and started turning it into a franchise, basically, and getting all these people from outside, and then the whatever royalties got sold, and it became a ticketed event. But anyway, the point is about Tramlines is that you could wander in across the road into any venue in Sheffield, and there'd be a band on. There'd be a band, or at least about 500 bands, probably more, probably in the thousands over the weekend, right up and spreading from, the south of Sheffield right up to like Hope Valley and Edale, branching out to the Peak District. Anyway, so we after COVID we had the chance to play this, and on the Saturday morning we did a live stream, just to get some music out there. We had interviews with photographers and stuff like that, and then we played at a venue called the Dove and Rainbow, and I've never ever seen this venue packed out to the rafters. And these people didn't really care what they were listening to; they just wanted to hear music after 2 years. And the atmosphere and the energy that was going around in the audience, whilst fed back onto the stage, it made us feel great and played a lot better. And we played alongside some well-known local bands as well, so that put us on the map a little bit. We started to get a little bit of a following, and it's kicked off since there, really. And then we did a couple more gigs after that, and everyone was just bouncing off the other, and we started mixing with other bands in the area. So I can do a few name drops here. So bands like IO, Magenis brothers, and their cousin, I think it is. He's got another side band, and yeah, you started to get into this community, or the metal community, or the music community, as it was, and now it's just flourished. You're looking about for probably a couple of years on from that. I think it must be now, and the underground scene in the north of England in particular is growing, and we've got bands like Kurikuma in Sheffield that have just thrived off this. They do European tours in Scandinavia, and because the stoner doom metal scene is massive up there for some reason, and it always has been, to be fair, and they've really grabbed onto that. And then we've got bands called Conan from Liverpool. I'm currently in Manchester, so that's only 20 miles down the road. In fact, I was at an open mic night recently, bumped into somebody who know them really well. So Josh, the lead singer, I've spoke to him quite a few times. I've not shared a stage with him, but maybe it's on the bucket list. And yeah, because of COVID, people just seem to be wanting music a lot more. And and it's so much more accessible than it's ever been. So it's so easy to put something online. It's so easy to um, get something on SoundCloud. But I think that's the thing now. It's everybody's doing the same thing. So you have to be very exceptional in what you do to be recognised as a musician. But if you're in the right circles, if you are constantly working hard, if you are crafting your instrument, if you're talking to the right people, if you're going to gigs, if you're connecting with the right people, then things will start to happen. And at the end of the day, there's one lesson I've learned in the 17 years. If you get an opportunity, like I've done sound engineering as well, that's part of my degree. And I used to do it for a local church, and I started doing it. The last tram line's just gone. I was a sound engineer for a local venue just on the main stretch in Sheffield. I hosted 5 bands that night. One of them dropped out. We had a few technical issues. We were short on microphones. I had to go and ask somebody to go to a music store. I had to bob into another venue called Corporation Nightclub, and ask them for some equipment, and everybody chips in and everybody helps each other. And in the end, it was a really good night. Those bands really loved it. The audience really loved it. I'm still in contact with quite a few people from that, and there might be an opportunity for the next festival in the summer to get back to Sheffield and either play or do some sound. And I love doing both, particularly the sound as well, because you can always tell how good a band are by how good their sound engineer is. And if their sound engineer is really good, then and can project that sound and make sure everything's on point and really, really put that sound out there in a way that suits the band and the audience can really get on with it. And I think this is why things like the Super Bowl, for example, are massive. You can get paid ridiculous amounts of money for being a sound engineer. And you think it's just pushing faders up and down. It's a lot more than that. You actually have to have an ear for it, and you have to really understand what you're doing. But yeah, so that's Tramlines in a nutshell, and I guess that's the metal community that is growing over the north of England. I think Manchester's a hot, basically um, like a witch's cauldron. That's the best way to describe it. It's bubbling, and it's like an epicenter for all the bands of the north to congregate. You've got Manchester and Leeds, and everybody wants to play all at Manchester and Leeds. I think the Star and Garter is still going in Manchester. I don't 100% know, but there's been a few bands locally that I've missed because I've been working. I've been like, oh, actually, they're doing really well for themselves now and really put themselves on the map. And myself included now. So, like I said, did a open mic night, got asked to join the house band. So I'm going to do that every other Thursday down in a place called Lynn. I'm doing a gig as a gig. I'm going to put some kind of set list together. I've got a couple of other musicians that I'm going to work with on the 13th of April in Stretford at a place called The Head. If you don't know, if you're from Manchester and you're watching that and you're in the area, come check us out. It should be a good laugh. Bring an instrument if you want as well. There'll be a chance for everyone to play. But yeah, because of COVID, I feel like it's reignited and it's the fire, as it were, for music to these sort of communities to really, thrive. And one of the reasons they do that is because they've got a good group of promoters that know the bands individually and will all work together, and the promoters work together and the bands work together, and make sure that we basically look out for each other. So, for example, I think I had some technical issues at one of the gigs I did once, and my drum kit, my snare drum broke or something. And I was like, oh well, I've got to be on stage in half an hour. Is there anybody that I can lend a snare drum off? And it's just like, yeah, sure. And then you get to know the other guy, and we talk to that band, and it's like, oh, and then eventually from that spark there, from that conversation, we ended up playing on the same stage together. Not more than 2 months later, and obviously I followed into what they're doing musically, and they were into what we were doing musically, and such a great atmosphere when it's like that, and everything's tight and there's no egos riding, and that's a big thing in music. Personally, I think Alex Turner's got a massive ego from Arctic Monkeys. He just, and that rides and that shows through. But most frontmen have, and that's what makes them unique. And I think if you're going to be somebody, if you're going to do something, if you're going to want to make it, and you know that you're going to make it, and it's the only thing that you can do, then you'll do it. So, for example, John Lennon knew he wasn't good at school, flunked out a few times, had a difficult upbringing, but he had the right approach to it. And I wouldn't say that his ego helped him throughout his career, but it certainly gave him the drive to get there and get the Beatles to where they were. Um, and that is, I think that's that. John Lennon's iconic now, isn't he? Um, he's got a mouth on him. He's lets himself run away with himself sometimes, and he's been in a bit of bother. But like that's what I'm trying to say about the whole frontman thing. You have to be a sort of particular type of person, and it can piss people off. That sort of person, or it can elevate. So I don't know, I've met a few people and gigged with a few people, and it's just been like, oh well, look at you. You're just think they're 10 men on stage or think they're everything. When in actual fact they're not. They're just playing guitar. They're just singing at the end of the day. But yeah, I still don't quite know how this live stream's going to go. But it's kind of gone on several different tangents. Maybe I'll have a plan for later on. And I've already been speaking for 30 minutes, which is good, I guess. I'm proving I can hold a conversation. Hopefully, people will get more people to watch. People that have subscribed to the channel. Get people to drop some questions, fire some questions, and I'll try and answer them. Maybe I want to do a special on music and mental health. I really want to touch on that basis because it's interesting how music is so embedded in us as people and as human beings. I physically, well, let's not. Let's talk about it for a bit. So, for me, it's a whole body experience. It's musicians find it hard, I feel, to relate to others that aren't musicians because we feel music in a different way. It's not just like you hear a song on the radio, go, "Oh, that's good." I can listen to a song or an album once, twice, three times, put it down, come back to it 5 years' time, and take something completely different from that. For example, there's an album that I carry with me, not physically, but like I carry with it. It comes with me everywhere I go, called Throwing Copper by Live. And each track's different. And I've been listening to this album since I was about 17. And each scenario I've been through in life, it seems to have some kind of answer. And as I've got older and I've matured in the way I play and the way I think and how you start to take in life as an adolescent and someone in the early 20s who doesn't really know what they want to do in life, it has an effect. It has an effect on you, and you start listening, and you start to understand. Well, for me, I started to understand what that album actually truly meant, and even to this day, at the age of 31, I could play it tomorrow and have the different experience I'm having if I played it right now, for instance. I guess I could always play a track off there in a minute, but yeah, it's just when you're a musician, when you're on stage, the release is like an out of body experience. It's like you've taken some kind of drug, and you never really, for me, you never really match that experience. No, nothing on the planet can ever match that experience. And you just feel so free, and you just feel like a different person. When you come off stage, you feel the adrenaline doesn't leave your body. You can't just shut off. I can't just go to bed and night, I've got to wake in the morning. It takes me hours to shut off from after a gig because it's just so euphoric. And that's not me trying to be weird about it and pie in the sky and you're daft because you can't calm down from that. It happens. And mentally, I just feel like a different person. I wake up the next day and go, "Oh, that was incredible." But the same when I'm listening to music. Yeah, I feel when you listen to a riff and you think that's hard, that's really good. Like gets you, and you think it hits you like I can't describe that feeling of um, just yeah. I don't have any words to describe that feeling. But the whole premise of it is that you can finish your 9 to 5, you can finish your bar job, you can finish whatever job you're doing, you can finish your factory job, you can finish your teaching job, you can finish your whatever job you're doing at the end of the day, and you can come home and you can whack an album on in the car and it will just hit you. It will hit you, and you'll be like, do you know what? I can zone out for 2 hours, an hour's commute there and back or whatever, and feel yourself and be like, well, actually, it's really nice. And that the first band that I experienced that with was Metallica growing up. They were a band for me that were full of angst, full of energy, and they haven't changed throughout their career. Um, they're one of these bands you think, well, once you make it, you start doing ballady sort of shit, and um, yeah, and then you think, oh well, a bit like Aerosmith. Aerosmith have become that band where they start slow down and get ballady, and it's like the ultimate acclaim as a musician. And you release a track, and you hear other people doing covers of that during in their albums or on when they perform on stage. But Metallica have always had that ferocity and that aggression, and it will always take me back to a place there. It'll always take me back to that place when I was first discovering Metallica and first picking up drumsticks properly and experiencing music. And I think that's very important as a human being to experience that, because not only am I reminded myself and how I've grown how much since then, but I was molded into a person then. And it's the very reason now why I like the music I like now, because of Metallica, because of finding that band out, because for bands like Green Day, for example, where all I did solidly for a year or two was learn Kerplunk and American Idiot, and Enter Shikari were another one of those bands. Take to the Skies, I could bash that whole album out right now in my sleep. So I owe it. I guess what I'm trying to say is mentally, I owe it to those bands. They helped create the person I am today, and I would not look back in remorse. Yeah, I've done some questionable things in life, but like they helped shape me then for who I am now. And every time I hear that music, I'm taken back to that place, and it's humbling to go back to that place. So yeah, music can work in a lot of different ways. So yeah, we're coming up to 40 minutes. I think I'm gonna end this live stream now. So um, I might release one a week, and have different topics. Maybe I can get some people to collaborate with, and we'll see where we go with it. Talk about music. We'll talk about different things. Ask me a question about me, ask me a question about anything, and I'll try and answer it as best I can. Or we can just talk. Yeah. So yeah, this has been a part of my Pop Dissects, where I'm just going to call it Pop Dissects Let's Talk, and I'll try and have a different topic to talk about every week. Probably Sunday evenings seem to work, so why not? Let's just do Sunday evenings for now. But yeah, yeah. I'll see you in my next video. Like and subscribe to the channel. Stick around. Have a mooch around on the channel. See what you like. Leave me a comment. Yeah, it's been nice talking. Peace out.